honest, in full disclosure here, one of the reasons I'm calling you, Pat, is that I saw your name in the Tri-City News.
Yes.
The line.
They even spelled it correctly.
I know. I was going to say that's pretty impressive. They're getting better. They may be learning finally. But I'm kind of confused. I mean, the line that your name appears in talks about Scott Young, and I thought Scott Young was finished and over, and we'd heard the last of him. And then I find out that he's still causing problems. I need the Reader's Digest version. What's going on here?
Well, I'm guessing here, Fred. I think that he thought the old rules about campaign contribution disclosure still applied. And when he went to City Hall, he realized that they would post that on the web. It was no longer going to be by appointment, and only handwritten transcription, but instead all of these documents are posted on the web.
So...
And I understand that he did not spend anything like $10,000 on his campaign.
A lot of people, I mean, when I read this, I was like, okay, so what? And then a lot of people look at this and say, who cares about this? Why is this significant?
Well, because if he did in fact spend the money for other than election purposes, he's violated the Elections Act. He's probably committed electoral fraud.
Now, Pat, does that sound like something Scott Young would do?
Yes. Yes.
So, you obviously, I mean, I shouldn't speak for you, but I mean, you're leaning towards the fact that he didn't sign this paper, and that he didn't return calls from the Tri-City News, and he's kind of not saying anything about this. You're thinking this suggests he's got something to hide here.
It wouldn't be Scott Young if he didn't have something to hide. He's just got something new to hide.
Okay, in retrospect, you also ran the 2005 campaign against Scott Young. Did you disclose all your financial contributions the same way that Scott Young was supposed to have?
No, because he had a list. I only had that Black Fool Blue Jester that I published, printed up. That was it. It wasn't too hard to make my full declaration.
So, I guess Scott Young basically said he raised approximately $55,000, only spent $45,000 in that election against you, but
only $45,000. Yes, he made a point of that. He could have spent more. But he recovered from his fright just in time, and it caught him up.
But here's what I found most interesting: if he if he manages to file this disclosure by April 15th, he will still have to pay a $500 fine. And then if he doesn't do that, he's banned from running for council again until 2011. Where's the actual punishment here?
Well, we are talking about the Elections Act, the Local Government Act, the Community Charter. This is BC legislation. BC legislation is meant to never be enforced.
But my point is, I mean, if
it's like the Lobbyist Act. Ken Sella doesn't have any problem being a lobbyist for CN and working for the BC government at the same time, because there's really nothing in the law.
It's so preposterous. And my point is, I mean, if he actually has $10,000 he didn't spend sitting in an account somewhere, a $500 fine isn't going to matter to him. And the fact that he won't be able to run until 2011, if he doesn't disclose, I mean, there's not going to be another election until 2011 anyway. So, it doesn't seem to me.
No, he can't run in that one. He can't. He has to miss an election. That's the penalty.
Because it only says here that he will be banned from running again until after 2011. I mean, if the election's held in 2012, is he permitted to run, or does he have to miss the election?
I'm sorry, your phone dropped.
I'm sorry. I was saying, I mean, if the election is held in 2012, is he good to go, or is he mandated from not running in an election for one term?
Yes. If there was a by-election, he could run in it.
There it is. Okay, so I'm saying
Yeah.
this sounds like an empty punishment to me. Maybe he knows that.
I suspect he does. The question is, what responsibilities does the chief elections officer have? Is there some complaint that can be laid, say, with the RCMP? After, if it's an offense, then potentially for 6 months after April the 15th, if someone could establish that he hadn't spent the $10,000 on the election, they could bring a charge under the Elections Act. Whether anybody would pursue that is a different matter, but potentially the charge could be brought.
I know. I have to admit, I was surprised throwing up the paper and see Scott Young's picture looking at me again, buried on page 6, 8.
Maybe he did it just to get in the paper.
Maybe because on page 6.
Maybe he hadn't seen his picture for some time and he couldn't remember what it looked like.
Well, his picture does appear in the paper, and I was surprised to see his name again. Have we heard anything from Scott Young since he disappeared from the political scene after his crushing defeat in the last election?
No, he did not go back to City Hall. He did not fulfill his duties as mayor. He was occasionally seen in shops. What I am told is he has bought a townhouse or a condominium in downtown Port Coquitlam, and he lives here. And that's from a good source.
So were you surprised yourself to open up the paper and see Scott Young's face there?
No, after all the things he's done. I really wondered how long it would be before he did something else. This is mild compared to what I thought he might do.
Right. Did you go to this council meeting on Monday where this first came up?
Oh, yes.
And what was the reaction of council and the people that were in attendance when they heard about that?
There's no reaction. They don't remember who Scott Young was officially. I mean, personally they do, but the group memory has been purged of that name and image.
Of
course.
Who can blame
I'm
them?
just wondering if somebody's going to edit the photographs.
Well, what about the people in the audience when it came up? I mean, I'm assuming there was more than just you at this council meeting. I mean, I've heard rumors that actually 2 or 3 other people attend these council meetings besides you.
Well, there was actually quite an attendance. Dave Tazera brought his wrestling group.
Yes.
Including one fellow in a mask.
Did he?
Perhaps that was Scott Young.
He does have the physique, or so I've been told. Okay, but you're telling me there was no reaction whatsoever from anyone in the audience, or?
No. I talked to the reporter from the local paper that ran that story, Gary McKenna.
Yeah, that's correct.
And I talked to Dave Allen and a couple of other people about it. Yeah, there is, some surprise that he's still causing difficulties. And as I say, privately, some of the city councillors are surprised that he's still causing difficulties. But, they've been trained. They've been trained to no longer rise up and wave their hands and shout. It doesn't look good.
No, I suppose not. And with a new mayor in there, I guess it's a whole new start, a new page. They don't want Scott Young anywhere near this new era.
Yeah. They don't want to invite comparison between the master and the apprentice.
You're not giving up on that whole thing, are you?
Sorry?
I said you're not giving up on that whole thing, are you?
Oh, I really, I sit there and I think how much alike they are.
Well,
except that Scott Young was less voluble. Greg really